So no need to go past the first page, but it'd be awesome to get your name and your email on that first page. And I think we're at 6:05, Audrey, so we could probably go ahead if you started. Okay, awesome.
Sounds good. You have control of the slides.
I do. There we go. Okay.
Cool. So folks, thanks so much for joining us. We are ReKaivery. We're a local Fort Collins based, but we're a Colorado public benefit corporation. We're really proud of that. And we are on a mission to recover local food networks. In this workshop, we'll just go through kind of what we're about. We'll go through the research of supply chains, globalization of food, to give kind of a quick overview of where our food is coming from. We'll go into kind of the benefits, the not so benefits, and then we'll go into our own research and then our model. So hopefully you can follow along. If you have the survey up on your phone or online, we will have fun playing trivia. So, all right, next slide. So just a quick overview, ReKaivery is creating Fort Collins' first local-only food hub. This will bring equitable, sustainable opportunities to our community members. You can see on the picture on the left, it's just a rendition right now, and we're currently working to make it look more real than just this rendition right now, but it will be a renovated mobile solar-powered shipping container. And it took us a while to get there, so we'll kind of explain how we got there. But yeah, we'll just kind of go into our next slides. A lot of folks ask what a food hub is. There's a lot of interpretations of what a food hub is. Tash and I's interpretation is a centralized location for locals to access, buy, and sell products locally. A lot of times people think a food hub is a distributor. However, that food is coming from, 400, 500 miles away. And so this is our interpretation. Take it as you will. And we'll go to the next slide. Thank you. So a little bit about me. My name is Audrey. I'm one of the founders of ReKaivery. I was also one of the founders of Fort Collins Delivery Network, which was a response nonprofit to COVID that helped deliver groceries to at-risk folks here in Fort Collins. I have a background in healthcare, especially emergency services, working in the ambulance and ER, also bike guide. And my background is I obtained my Impact MBA at CSU, which I'm proud of. Next slide, thank you.
Awesome. And then, so I'll introduce myself quickly. My name is Natasha. I often go by Tash though. I am one of the co-founders of ReKaivery as well, obviously. And I just want to highlight again Audrey's work with her Fort Collins Delivery Network that she co-founded during the pandemic. It was an amazing effort. And so she skipped over that way too quickly. But the Fort Collins Delivery Network, I was fortunate to be able to volunteer a couple of times, but Audrey was the one doing the heavy lifting there. And they did such an amazing job. They would before the supermarkets really got to the delivery, they were offering free delivery for groceries. So people would go and pick up these groceries for at-risk populations and then deliver it to their home so that they could stay safe. And it was amazing. So just had to toot Audrey's horn a little more there because she glossed over that too quickly. But I am also proud to be a co-founder of Pups on the Plains, which is a nonprofit based in Alabama, of all places. During my undergrad, I connected with some other amazing people, and we realized we all shared a passion around helping dogs and rescuing at-risk dogs in high kill shelters and rescuing dogs from unfortunate, unloved situations. And they've continued to blossom and grow. I'm no longer directly a part of that, but I was really proud to be a part of that. And they're a fun organization doing great things. My background is in conservation biology. So I graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Conservation Biology, but then realized that I wanted to, rather than be reactive, I wanted to be proactive. And to me, that meant going back and getting an MBA, but not just any MBA, an impact MBA. So I learned of the formerly known as Global Social Sustainable Enterprise MBA. So I know it's an absolute mouthful, but I learned of that and realized that they were developing a future where business and sustainability came together. And that was very attractive to me. So that is actually where Audrey and I met. And so we met in our Impact MBA at CSU. And this is Audrey and I when we graduated last year. And the Impact MBA is truly wonderful. The staff are incredible. If you're interested at all, feel free to reach out to us with questions, or you can find it online. Obviously, it's a very, I was going to say it's a very impactful program. That's kind of cheesy because it's called Impact MBA, but it's really amazing. And some amazing people have come out of it too, with some really impactful businesses. So we were really grateful to connect there. And during our time in that MBA, we committed our time to researching food and food supply and everything about food, really. So that's what we did during our year and a half, nearly 2 years of our MBA. We were researching food, and I think it's one of those things where when you don't know much about it, you think you can learn a lot of it, and then you learn a little bit, and then you realize how much you don't know. And so it was really eye-opening for Audrey and I. We went in knowing a couple of statistics here and there that I'll cover on the next slide, and we wanted to get to the bottom of these pieces of information. But once we opened that door, it was a lot. And part of it too was just having to understand truly what a supply chain was. And I invited our supply chain professor this evening, but I don't think she was able to make it. But I had to make a joke. I said, Susan, this is ironic, but we are going to present a little bit about food supply chains if you want to come. And Susan was our supply chain teacher. She was wonderful. But obviously everything has a supply chain. So food supply chains are unique because they're working with quality control, you're working with temperature, you're working with products that are so perishable. Obviously, clothing has a supply chain, cars have a supply chain, but they're not perishable products. So the food supply chain is really unique. And we sort of opened that door because of these few statistics. So one of the first things that really blew Audrey and I away was how many times food is touched in the traditional food supply chain, or how many times it moves. So if you are on the quiz, the chat is in the link if you aren't on the quiz yet. And if you'd like to go to our quiz, please feel free to answer this first question. And it is, how many times do you think the average piece of food is moved before it reaches the consumer? I obviously kind of gave it away a little bit in the sense that I said Audrey and I were shocked as we started learning this, but maybe you will have some knowledge that we didn't have before moving into this space. But again, we'll just give you a few more moments to go ahead and finish that first question. You can press the next button after you've done that if you'd like, but we'll sort of go through the quiz questions sporadically throughout the PowerPoint. So no worries, you don't need to go through and answer every single thing right now. We will go through them as we go through the PowerPoint, because that way we can give the answers at the time too, which is nice.
And for folks that logged in as we started presenting, just click the link in the chat box, put in your name so we can keep track of you, and then answer the first question. Oh my gosh, Tash.
I know. I'm sorry.
Answers.
It was so quick. There's no way they could have counted.
Incentive for the new folks is there will be, if you win, we will send you a coupon to go get a free Ben & Jerry's ice cream. So.
Mm-hmm. We were really fortunate. We've had a lot of local businesses support us, so we're grateful to be able to give that away tonight. Okay, I think there's probably enough time.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so the average is 9, which maybe you have experience that would let you know that. Audrey and I obviously have the experience now, but two and a half years ago when we first started our MBA and dedicated our topic to food supply, we were pretty surprised by this. But the 9 obviously is a farmer, and then goes to a transport or truck, processor, transport truck, manufacturer, transport truck, distributor, transport truck, and then either restaurant or, retail. And then finally, there actually is even more, because that's when the consumer becomes involved. But we worded the question, so it was pre-consumer. So it is a really massive supply chain, and that was something that Audrey and I learned very quickly, and then we started interviewing people at every single place along this supply chain, which was fascinating. But I will go to our next slide. So another statistic that really stood out to us, and this was sort of what pushed us into the food space and what Audrey and I connected over, was this piece of information here. So in the US, how far do you think a piece of food travels in miles before it's consumed? So go ahead, if you haven't, go press next on the quiz, and you can select the answer that you think is correct. Once again, if you are like, what quiz? It's the link in the chat. The link is in the chat. Obviously, it's totally optional, but it's fun that we have some Ben & Jerry vouchers to give away, and it's just really a way to help us engage you and try and help some of this information stick too, because it is fascinating. And this was another piece of information. Obviously, I'm not from here. I'm from New Zealand. That's where my accent is from. And to be honest, I don't know how many miles long New Zealand is, but this sounded like a lot of miles when I learned this piece of information for food to be traveling this far. So I think I've bought enough time. Are we good, Audrey?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, perfect. So food in the US travels on average 1,500 miles before it is consumed. And that was just so mind-blowing to us. And this is a USDA piece of information. So this isn't us doing research. This is the research that other people so kindly did, that we learned about once we started getting our fingers into this food space. And we will present our personal research a little later. So this is from the USDA. 1,500 miles is the average that food travels before it's consumed. So it is a massive, massive number. All right.
Yeah. So I'll start talking about the current benefits of the food supply chain. So, I mean, we got to this point for a reason. First off, it's really, really efficient. So there's a model, it's called the hub and spoke model. If you think of like a bicycle, there's like a hub in the middle and then little spokes. That represents the food supply chain. So if you think of a distributor is centralized, let's say in Denver, because you can reach Fort Collins really quickly, or Glenwood Springs. And so first off, the supply chain is really efficient. Also, it complies with regulation. So it was formed this way because of regulation. One of them being the Food Safety Modernization Act, which I'll talk about later. But as well, the globalization of food. I mean, it's pretty awesome that I can eat a mango and be in Fort Collins, or an avocado. So with consumers expanding their palate, especially with the globalization of food, we're now seeing obviously an increase in the food mileage. Next slide, please. Other benefits, there are a lot of agricultural advantages to this. So because our food supply chain is so mainstreamed, that allows us to have more predictability with consumer trends. It allows the hybridization of seed technology. So we know, okay, this is going to be a trend in the future. How can we make something that's the best? As well as it helps increase, efficiency of yields and whatnot. Next slide, please. And like I said, with our palate increasing, it has diversity and an abundance of food options. I mean, this photo to the left is like how I feel every time I walk to a grocery store, seeing like 12 different types of apples. And I'm like, I just want one. So, yeah. So, I mean, it's a great thing, you have abundance and whatnot. Next slide, please. However, there's so many issues to this, and we're going to talk about it. There's a lot of environmental issues and social issues that stem from this globalization of food. So to understand the key issues, I think it's important to take a backtrack and understand the parameters of how this was set up. So first off, we have a lot of subsidies and legislation that's in place that has created the food supply chain to be this long? First off, just starting from the basics, our food supply chain, starting with the farmers, we have a lot of subsidies out, in which I'm unsure if my audience knows what a subsidy is, but a subsidy basically, if I'm a farmer and I grow just sugar cane and I have a relationship with someone, they were always going to give me that specific price for the sugar cane. It's never going to change. So there's a lot of benefits to it, and there's more about subsidies that I can go on and on for. But starting there, that kind of creates like the predictability and whatnot in the supply chain. As well, there's a big influence on the supply chain. So it favors really, really big farms, especially big farm co-ops. And as well, there is a lot of lobbying for certain foods that we see. So that's why, like, if you go in the cereal aisle, it seems like every cereal is kind of the same. Like there's just small little micro ingredients that are changed in it. And then lastly, the Food Safety Modernization Act. So this act was passed in 2011 and basically regulates the harvesting, the processing, and the manufacturing of our foods. And while it's great because in terms of a food safety aspect, it's so important for everyone to be safe. When there's an outbreak, like that could be prevented, it's heartbreaking. However, some of the measures that were taken in this Food Safety Act inhibit small farmers. And so that's why from 2013 to 2018, we saw a loss of 200,000 small farms. It's been pretty detrimental. Basically, if I'm a small farm and I want to sell to the mass, I have to go through a distributor and go through all the food safety protocols. And so anyways, so next slide, not to bring things down, but there is social inequities that happen with it. And so you might be thinking like, social inequity, like what's that? It basically means like, okay, if you look at all of our 4 stakeholders here, so you have the farmers, manufacturers, distributors, retailers, for how long the supply chain is, the people that actually are in the fields, harvesting and growing and nurturing this food only get 8 to 10 cents of every dollar a consumer spends on food. And I want to add, this is just revenue based. This is not net profit or whatnot. But like, if I was a farmer, and Tash, you might have to click the next for my gift to pop up. But if I was a farmer, I would be like, what? I would be like 8 to 10 cents. That's insane. And this is obviously on average in the United States. This is not hyper local, and we can talk about our research from there, but there are inequities that happen. And so I just wanted to mention that. Next slide, please. So there's a huge environmental impact to this. So this food supply chain, it being so long, there is going to be food waste. And it's going to be probably along the chain, not going to give any answers away. But we have our first 2 questions that you can pull up on your survey. The first question is, what percentage of food intended for human consumption is wasted? So you can answer that question. And then the second one is, what parts of the supply chain experience food waste? So that picture that you saw that Tosh went over of the supply chain, what parts have food waste? So I'll give you guys a second. If you guys just joined in again, click into the link that's in the chat box and fill out your information, and then go to this question, and you will get possibly a Ben & Jerry's ice cream voucher.
Nice. I was wondering if you were going to say something that might give it away.
I know, I forgot.
No, you're good.
All right, we'll give you guys like 10 more seconds, just since you guys aren't rookies at this point. And then I'll go on.
Nice.
All right, you can go ahead, Tosh.
All right, we're going to reveal. If you haven't heard this one before, it's pretty shocking.
Yeah.
All right, there it goes.
So for food waste, 30 to 40% of human ready food is wasted in the supply chain. And it occurs in every single stakeholder in the supply chain. So that big photo of like those 9 points, like just imagine perfectly good food, just not making it because of obviously a lot of good reasons, food safety, a broken pallet, other things, but it happens because of how long the supply chain. And so it makes you wonder, well, if this chain was smaller, could there be more, prevented? So anyways, the issue of food waste, which I'll go down to global emissions, is the decomposition of food is really detrimental to our environment. So if the United States if you take all the food waste in the United States, it would be the third leading like global gas emission in the world because of how much methane comes from it. So also the energy and water emissions are all wasted. So if you think of, the farmer out in the field, the water it took to grow these things, the machinery that took and the energy that it took to harvest it, those are all wasted as well. And so that all contributes as well. It's not just the methane from food waste. But also other environmental impacts that we're seeing from these huge food supply chains is biodiversity loss. So we were talking about agricultural advantages that we understand, like seed hybridization, and we have predictability with consumer trends and stuff. However, we're coming into a society in which has monocrops, and these monocrops could be, the UN has predicted, a crisis in the future, that if a disease were to come, it could wipe acres and acres of corn, that because we don't have that biodiversity of corn, it's just going to take down that field, rather than if there was more biodiversity, there would be more resilience. And so, yeah, next slide, please. Go ahead, Tash. I'll pass it to you.
Alrighty. So that was, I know it's heavy. That is pretty heavy. There are benefits. We do get mangoes in the winter, and that's amazing. But there are some major negatives, as Audrey kindly highlighted. It is heavy though. So that was information that we learned, but isn't our own research. So we will now go into our research, which concerns much more of the local area, Colorado, Northern Colorado. So I'm excited to share this with you. First of all, where did this information come from? We surveyed over 850 people. That was broken into 150 farmers and makers, and then 700 local consumers, and that was sort of distributed within Northern Colorado. So it's not just Fort Collins, but sort of Northern Colorado area. So that's where this information comes from. The first thing we learned, this one wasn't too surprising to us, 89% of our 700 consumer responses said that buying locally sourced food is important to them. And now that it's a wonderfully high number, but it's not too surprising to us because we do have a wonderful pride in local foods around here. The farmers markets are awesome and people are very proud. There's the Colorado Proud stickers and things like that. So this was awesome to have quantified, but it wasn't necessarily surprising because we do have a wonderful local culture. The next piece of information we learned was that 90% of our respondents who want to go to farmers markets miss at least one farmers market every month. So that's 1 in 4 weekends. They're busy because of any reason. It could be work, you have kids, you're doing schoolwork, anything, any reason. Our respondents were unable to go to the farmers market at least one time every month. But then from there, it was actually 41% of all respondents are missing 3 or 4 of the farmers markets every month. I mean, if you're missing 4 farmers markets every month, that's the month gone, right? So, and that's 41%. So not very short of half of our respondents who are wanting to go to farmers markets are missing 3 or 4 farmers markets each month because they're busy, and so they miss their chance to buy locally. And that was really powerful to us. So this started saying to us, okay, there's a disconnect here. There's a disconnect between the people wanting to buy locally and being able to buy locally. And then we heard these same respondents say that 85% would purchase local food regularly if it were more convenient. And that is so powerful because it speaks to the potential we have here that we're missing in our Northern Colorado communities and broader Colorado as well. We, of course, when you ask for opinions on a survey, it can change a little bit. And so we know that not all 85% would immediately go and start buying locally if it was more convenient. But for people to believe that they would, that's so powerful to hear that our community would buy local food regularly if it was more convenient. And so we need to make it more convenient for them so that they can. Another piece of information, and we have a question here. So those previous questions were starting to speak to us. Okay, we're missing the market. We have this broad gap or lack of connection between our local farmers and local buyers. So then we started thinking, okay, well, what else are we missing? It's not just the Saturday farmers market. So we wanted to know from Northern Coloradans how frequently they're buying groceries, because even if you are lucky and you can go to the farmers market on a Saturday, what if you need to restock halfway through the week and then there's no farmers market? So we asked everybody how frequently they buy their groceries to understand these consumer purchasing habits. And now, if you'd like to go to that next question in your quiz, and the quiz link, if you are joining us, is in the chat. I'm sure no one's joining now, but just in case, you can skip through the first questions. And we have a question that says, it's percentage, it should be a percentage actually, sorry, that wording is a little funny, but what percentage of Northern Coloradans buy their groceries more than once per week? So this will equate for people that buy their groceries twice a week, 3 times a week, 4 times a week. Not sure what you're doing if you're buying it 5 times a week, but this will count. So total percentage of people buying their groceries more than once per week. What do we think it is? We have some options on that quiz. I've probably bought enough time now, so I'm going to go ahead. Yep, Audrey's nodding. I got the go ahead. Okay, so it is 45%. So nearly half of the Northern Colorado consumers are buying their groceries more than once per week. So if you do have the privilege to be able to go to the farmers market on a Saturday, most likely you're part of the nearly 50% that needs to restock. And often there's not a second farmers market halfway through the week. I know there is actually one here in Fort Collins for a very short period, and we're very fortunate for that. But there are other places where that's not the case. All righty. And now, so that was our consumer side. And now Audrey will chat about what we heard from the farmer side.
Yeah. So, and these are just little captions of our research. We actually even did research with like our manufacturers and distributors, but we're just focusing on the consumers and our farmers right now. So another really, really interesting stat that we found from our farmers was 80% of our farmers, of the 150 that we surveyed, are seeking more convenient sales. And that's really, really powerful. So they have 4 options right now. So the current opportunities are a CSA share, which, you know, in February, you have usually like $300 to $500, depending on the span and quality and everything else that you would get from a farmer, whether it's meat or veggies, and then you get that throughout the summer if you're not aware of CSA. Then there's the farm stand. So farm stands are great, especially since a farmer has more autonomy. It could be fresh cut right in the stand. One downside is just that it's very far away for folks. As well as with the CSA share, I should have mentioned, a lot of folks don't have the $300 to $500 to, you know, have right away in February for the CSA. The third option is the farmers markets. The farmers markets are great. You know, it's the highest grossing day for a farmer. They get, you know, when we were talking 8 cents to the dollar, whatnot, they get 90 cents to a dollar in terms of their margins, if you were curious. However, it is a lot on a farmer. Tash and I have actually had our own booth at the farmers markets. And like, even just for us, like when I go home, I'm exhausted. So I could not imagine, especially afterwards, to get back on the field and get next week's harvest or whatnot. And then the fourth option is retail. So out of the first 3 options, it's all up to the farmer, especially when it comes to there's more autonomy on their own margins. However, on the fourth option, a retailer, and I will talk about this in the next slide, but on average, farmers get about a 21% return here in Lermer County. So basically 21 cents of every dollar is the average margin farmers obtain when selling to a retailer. And so, like I said, if I'm a consumer and I walk in the store and I buy that vegetable and I check out, that's what the farmer is seeing. So if I'm a farmer, which I hope to be one day, because they're amazing and it would be so cool to grow my own stuff, I would be kind of bummed, looking at those margins. That's not something that I would be okay forfeiting. And so that's why those first three options that I mentioned, the CSH, its share, the thank you, Tash, the farm stand, and then the farmer's market, those are the best options that I can make sure that my hard work is paid off. And so anyways, I digress, but so we have another trivia coming up, but I'll just start and say the other thing that we surveyed from our farmers is we were trying to understand the WIC and SNAP benefit programs that are available to our community members. And we found out that all current farmers markets in Larimer County accept these benefit programs, which is really huge because not many counties have that. And so the fact that our farmers markets, the association have that, that's amazing. However, how many farms in Larimer County are registered with an EBT machine, which basically is a machine that allows you to accept WIC and SNAP benefit programs? And this is just data that we collected as of March for this, so it could have changed, I would like to add. But however, this is in your survey, so you can take a guess, and then I'll tell Tash to say next slide.
I'm keeping my finger off. I don't want to reveal it.
It's a quick question, so
it is.
You could probably put next.
Okay, we think. All right.
Yeah. So only one farmer independently is registered with an EBT machine. So this means that the access to community members, we mentioned a lot of demographics and what Tosh was talking about with the consumers and the data that we collected, but specifically now narrowing down to folks in our population that are in need of these programs, to find that only the farmers market and then one farmer independently have that access for them is very limiting. So next slide, please. Okay, here's another question. And this was from the Ag Census. This is not our data. However, the Ag Census, it's something that comes out every 4 years. It's from the USDA, and they basically measure farm products for each county, what stays in, what goes out, as well as the diversity of each product in the county. However, so here's the trivia question for this. What percentage of Lermer County grown products are purchased and consumed locally within the county?
If you've been involved with sort of local governments or anything, you may have heard this statistic because it's starting to get quite famous. I would almost say, when we've been really fortunate. Just this previous week, we were invited to present at the Agricultural Advisory Board meeting for Larimer County, and we referred to this specific statistic and people just nod their heads. It's starting to get quite famous for all the wrong reasons in the county right now. So that may give away the answer maybe a little bit, but it is famous because it is horrifyingly low. So
you can click it.
Yeah.
All right, 1%. That's crazy. That means that 99% is being exported out of the county. And so while that means it's great that there is trades and commodities and whatnot, that's awesome. However, when you think about the local dollar and the wealth being kept in the county and circulating around the county, we're not seeing a lot of that. And so this is why this stat is really important. And it also conveys that, hey, maybe it's being exported out of the county because there's not really good equitable sales markets for our farmers and suppliers. So anyways, next slide. Oh, okay. So now Tosh will do a quick recap of what we learned
Awesome. Yeah. So the major 3 points that we heard was that, first of all, it's really hard for local suppliers to sell into the local market in a convenient way that they deserve, right? There's options, but they deserve a more convenient, equitable option. Then it's inconvenient food access. We had 90% of people that want to go to farmers markets are missing them at least once a month, and 41% are missing them 3 or 4 times a month. It's inconvenient because they're in specific times, specific days, and that doesn't make it accessible for everyone. And then speaking of access again, it makes it inequitable for our diverse community. So because our individual farmers, and it's to no fault of their own because it can be challenging to do so, but because not many of our local farmers have EBT machines, benefit community members who are utilizing benefits cannot purchase directly from a farm. Thankfully, they can go to farmers markets, but once again, very short window. Anyone could be working or dealing with kids or family or anything. And so having those short windows makes it inequitable. So we heard all of that and we took that information in, and this is how we have built ReKaivery. We are addressing sales for local farmers and suppliers. So we are making a convenient model so that the sales for them are as convenient as possible. We are making it convenient for consumers to access and buy their products. We are ensuring that our low-income community members are included because we will have an EBT machine. So we help bridge that connection between local farmers and local benefit users. And we are also, because of those things, increasing the 1%, right? That classic, starting to be famous statistic of Larimer County, only 1% being bought in the county. We're going to help increase that. And so one way to think about this operation, I'll go step by step in just a moment, but one way to think about it is that we're an extension of the farmers market. And now we take very seriously that we are going to be a collaborator and a partner with local farmers markets. Wherever we end up having ReKaivery hubs, we will work with the closest farmers market to us. We are not a competitor. We are a collaborator, a partner, because we will be closed the day that the closest farmers market is operating. We are encouraging farmers markets. We love farmers markets. I was at the one this morning on Lermer and Harmony. The Full Collins Farmers Market is what that one is called. We are not here to be a competitor on the day they operate. We encourage that communal celebration of local foods, but we ensure that the products of that farmers market are available the rest of the week. So wherever we operate, the closest farmers market to our location, we will be closed that day. And that also helps with our replenishment of inventory. And I'll get into that into the next slide. So our operation, we start off with having suppliers reserve shelving for their food items online. So this is where we're very unique from any other sort of grocer, and that's why we can't really call ourselves a grocery, is because we're selling on consignment. So what that means is the supplier is reserving shelving, but then we bring their items in, manage it, store it, promote it, sell it on their behalf. And now part of bringing those items in is on a farmer's market day. We have that hub and spoke model that Audrey talked about, in the sense that if we have a farmer's market, we might have wonderful suppliers from a 40-mile radius, and now they're all in one place. So that's a very convenient, efficient place to pick up our inventory. So we would then work with suppliers, and they can bring more than usual to the farmer's market, knowing that we're going to be taking some of it into the store, or they can bring their regular amount and then they can just put their leftovers into our store. So we're addressing the food waste side of it. We're being really efficient, but we manage it, we store it, we sell it to the consumers, but we don't own it, which is meaning that our suppliers create that autonomy, or keep their autonomy, I should say. So the items are available to the public. People come in, and for a consumer, it does look like a grocery store, a cute mini grocery store with all the local products. We then offer restocking services for our farmers to ensure our shelves are stocked all week. We are working with the Food Bank of Larimer County to ensure that we have a partnership with them to donate any items that are nearing the end of their life, providing the farmers give us permission to do so. and then our suppliers are paid. So it's a really wonderful, tight little supply chain with not many touch points. And we're really excited about that because it helps make our impact even stronger. So some of our impact numbers, I won't go through all of these just because I'm aware that we want to keep moving for time's sake, but these are obviously projections right now. We haven't launched yet. We're getting close to it. Once we launch, we can readdress these, but we've used local experts, local food organizations to help us create these numbers. So we promise they're not just plucked out of thin air. We will be decreasing the average food miles. Now the food miles is that 1,500 mile number that we were talking about earlier, by 98%. And so with that comes all of those positive environmental impacts of reducing that travel. We anticipate and are projected to support around $10,000 through our EBT machine, which means that local food is going to our local WIC and SNAP users. We also anticipate returning around $300,000 to our local suppliers, and that means our dollars are staying local in the local economy. So we're really, really excited about that. Finally, before I hand it back over to Audrey, our locations. So we'll touch on this towards the end again for our upcoming location for our first pilot hub, but our locations all have parameters. So all of our hubs as we expand will be within a 1.5 mile radius of an operating farmers market, and that's to ensure that streamlined stocking process like I mentioned, and it also means that we're operating in a community that celebrates and loves their local foods. We must be close to public transport because accessing local food should not be a privilege for only those that own a car. We want to be able to include everybody in this model, and that means that if you're riding the bus, however you're traveling, you are welcome in our store. We want you in our store, and so we will be close to public transport to ensure that we are accessible for as much of the community as possible. Finally, we will be close to supermarkets because there's some things that we just don't make locally here in Colorado. Maybe we do, and maybe I don't know of them yet. And if you do know of them, let me know. But you know, there's health products or hygiene products or toothbrushes. I don't know of anyone creating toothbrushes locally. There's going to be some stuff that you have to go to the supermarket for. And so we don't want to be this inconvenient thing that's miles away from your regular shopping habits. If we go back to that consumer data that we collected, it's inconvenient. You keep hearing inconvenient. So we have to make it convenient, which means merging our store into people's current habits. So we have to be within a convenient location. And now Audrey's going to give a little more detail about a couple of specific things about us.
Yeah. So first off, I just wanted to touch back on what we started with. So when I introduced ReKaivery, I said that we're a Colorado public benefit corporation. So a lot of folks don't know what a PBC is. And so I just thought that it would probably be good to talk about it. So a public benefit corporation means that our mission is legally protected. So that means that if I was a board of director, I have to make decisions that help increase and benefit our mission rather than our financials. And so that shows that, and I think it's important. This was actually passed a few years ago, and one of the driving force of this being passed was by County Commissioner John Kafalis. So very proud for him to be representing our county, especially with the help of him endorsing this public benefit corporation. This also means that we need yearly impact reports. So that says that, hey, if you are going to have a mission that helps your stakeholders, you know, your farmers and recovering local food networks, what does that mean? And, you know, are you actually accountable? And so this is a really great business formation that holds accountability as well as protection. Next slide, please. And a little bit more, we since we've launched, we've had a great, well, not physically launched, but since the creation of ReKaivery, we've had the support of a lot of local organizations. I will not go through them all, but they have helped contribute, whether that's through knowledge, advice, guidance, support. It's been incredible. So we just wanted to have a slide to thank these folks for helping contribute to our model, as well as show where our intentions lie. And then, so our current situation and where we're at now, I just wanted to kind of say where we are. This is our timeline. If you know Tash and I, if you saw us 6 months ago, you would say, wow, they look so young, so youthful. We're aging exponentially, but in a good way. We have a lot of things going on, but I will not go through them all, just to say what's coming up. Things that are coming up, we do hope to launch July 20th. Those are our plans. And that's if obviously we get over a few hurdles that we have up and coming. And so I'll go to the next slide. Oh, and so Tosh will go over what those hurdles are. And then, yeah, we'll close off to get you guys out of here at 7.
Yeah, so one of the upcoming things is that we do need to sign a ground lease. And now we are a shipping container on wheels, and we take about the equivalent of 4 parking spaces. We are looking for locations at the moment, but we are yet to sign a contract. We have some options, which we're really fortunate and grateful to have. And we're looking at these contracts and making sure that we feel comfortable if we do move forward with one of our current options, or if we continue exploring other areas. But like I mentioned, the areas we're looking for do need to be close to public transport. They do need to be reasonably close to grocery stores and farmers markets. But we are, if you have any ideas, feel free to reach out to us. If you have connections to maybe property managers or commercial realtors, we are unique because it's a ground lease. All we need is space. We are a self-sufficient unit. It's solar powered. We have a water reservoir, which gets the truck comes in and sorts that out then and there. So we don't need to be hooked up to anything. We're self-sufficient. All we need is space. And so we have some options. We are yet to confirm one, but if you have any ideas, we're really open to hearing what options are out there, because we think that we can bring lots of benefit to whoever hosts us. And obviously we're willing to pay rent as well. So any ideas, we'd love to hear them. That is one of our upcoming things, is to sign a ground lease for our first hub, but then we will be broadening our stretch outside of the first one, and we're looking to host numerous food hubs in Fort Collins and beyond. So any connections you have anywhere in Northern Colorado is awesome. And then finally, just before we wrap up, we are doing our Kickstarter right now, and Kickstarter is a crowdfunding campaign platform. So it is a platform that's developed to engage communities or passionate people with projects that they want to see succeed, and then they can help fund it. So we obviously have a shipping container to buy. That was on our timeline. A shipping container to buy, a construction company to pay, and a solar engineer to pay, and other things. And so this funding, if we reach our goal, this will go towards paying for all of those things. The scary thing about Kickstarter is that it is an all or nothing platform, which means that if you don't reach your goal, and you can see right here, we're very transparent with our goal being $20,000. If we don't reach our goal, we don't get $1. And all of that currently pledged money is returned to the backers or the supporters. And that is because Kickstarter has their very motivating rule that it is all or nothing. So with that being said, we have 18 days to go. As you can see, this is very up to date. I popped it in right before we started this presentation. If you are interested in supporting us, we would be so grateful for a donation. But we're also really grateful for you spreading the word. Our support network has been incredible, absolutely incredible, but it's pretty little because we're still a startup. And so any network, any pair of eyes that you could help us get this Kickstarter in front of, we're really grateful for that. So that is us, really. We are sort of looking for a ground lease, looking for help with our Kickstarter. Again, that does not have to be monetary based. It could be, hey, I know someone that might be interested in this, and we'd be really grateful for that. If anything, check out the Kickstarter, because Audrey and I made a really fun video with our awesome marketing director, Austin, and it was a blast, and we've had pretty good feedback on it so far. So I hope you enjoy the video. But yeah, we have 5 minutes, I guess. We could probably, do you want to open it up to questions, Audrey, or how
Yeah.
do we, yeah?